Don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This is a test, we're playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. Don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This a test, playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. Don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This is a test, we're playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. Don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This a test, playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. We be conceited in faith when demons are placed to get us. We need to escape, but demons know where to hit us. We leaning away, I'm seeing your faith is shifting. But just remember that we need to be saved. We be conceited in faith when demons are placed to get us. We need to escape, but demons know where to hit us. We leaning away, I'm seeing your faith is shifting. But just remember that we need to be saved. We be conceited in faith when demons are placed to get us. We need to escape, but demons know where to hit us. We leaning away, I'm seeing your faith is shifting. But just remember that we need to be saved. We be conceited in faith when demons are placed to get us. We need to escape, but demons know where to hit us. We leaning away, I'm seeing your faith is shifting. But just remember that we need to be saved. This isn't. Don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This is a test, we're playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. Don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This a test, playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. Don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This is a test, we're playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. Don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This a test, playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. I was never perfect, just intention since I came into this earth. I've been in prison with these feelings to be a nigga and turn the killer bottles up toward the ceiling, developing an addiction to the girls and the liquors and the weed. Now I'm living, and I often hear the echoes of the sins from my beginning, and it seems that Satan bring them in a time when I am in the low. No, we got permission, so I'm in it, but I'm spiritual. I don't get it though. I waved the flag, and right before I hit my limit, bro, an angel come to lift me up, reminding me to keep the faith because the fire is the only way to see a fighter. Now you know you're higher than the past, and now I see it at last. The key is understand the battle when you're still on the path. The key is know the battle coming, many never will last. And now I'm better, I pass this wisdom over the brothers and don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This a test, playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. Don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This a test, playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. Don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This is a test, we're playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. Don't slip, don't fall. Don't let the demons move your spirit, stand tall. This a test, playing for. When you're serving the Lord, they come for you. We be conceited in faith when demons are placed to get us. We need to escape, but demons know.
Out in my ride, so much on my mind, just trying to catch a vibe. Thinking about my people, it seems they all blind. They thinking they know the truth, but no, not up to 12. Try. Some say we a nation that's built up on tribulation. Some say we was taken and put in this situation. I say honestly, man, it's a little bit of both. Just take it from a nigga who parents native and Haitian. White folks stole my people's land, but we gon' take it back, cause the most I put the power in our hands. Yeah, we going straight reprimand, cause the people did us dirty and never got punished. From here to friend, they out here preaching peace, but to us ain't none given. Convince us to protest, but disregard how we living. Well, soon y'all gon' know how we feeling. Yeah, how Shy's coming back to prove to you that you ain't been forgiven. I'ma break it to you now that with this joint ain't no hook. The aristocrats on the mic pushing them words like a book. I'm anointed and I'm a saint and I got these niggas shook. I'm a den, I pray prince of the power and I can't be forsook. I think it's unfortunate that y'all couldn't face the facts. You so confused, you can't seem to break down Romans and Acts. When I teach, y'all got me losing all of my patience. Hear the word Israelite and then it turns to Galatians. Honestly, y'all need to do some investigating. My people acknowledge but still fighting for education. Broke them shackles off of my mind and set me free. Now, Father, y'all got me thinking immortal relation. Try and wake y'all up, but you suckers being complacent. Shot that nigga in the street, but how you grew up's adjacent. Take a nigga life for a little bit of wealth just to spend that shit and move back into your mama basement. Now you become a Muslim so that your life don't get taken. Boy, assalamu alaikum, bean pies, green eggs, and bacon. Allah just the title, not the name of the Most High. You a Israelite, soon to be seeing revelation. Hey, now they saying the prince is lyrical. I'm ruling this thing, but it ain't nothing empirical. Yahweh shot sent the comforter, got me feeling spiritual. Yasha Allah on the rise, I ain't even hit the pinnacle. Hey, y'all know ain't too many better than I start varsity on this mic, I even got a letterman. Skills, concrete, solid, I ain't talking settlement. Repping the anointed house, man, you know we killing it. Hey, this time around, y'all better get a ticket. This young hit a bomb like the 96 Olympics. Mess with the men of the Lord, might end up in the clinic. We taking the kingdom soon, 1 hour, 0 minutes.
Shalom, shalom. What in the world? What's up, y'all? Shalom. Y'all hit the like button when y'all come in the building. Baba Kasha. Gonna wait for a couple of y'all to get up in here. So we'll wait. Give it a second. See why it's alright, guess that's a little bit better. Bullshit, bro. I'll be tired of these effects with this damn. Screw it. Alright. Give me a second. Hold on, y'all. Beauty of doing this crap by myself. Give it a second. Hold on. Y'all hit the like button when y'all come in the building. I'll be right back. Only motherfucker ever done this bullshit by myself. This shit, man. Yeah, all right. Let's get it. So, shalom, y'all. How y'all doing? Hope everybody's doing great. Bet. All right, I'm not gonna do all the shout outs because as y'all can see, I'm a solo dolo with it tonight. So tonight's lesson is basically gonna be a situation where I'm gonna be showing you guys a video from a brother of mine named Panah. Panah and I, along with Ariala, and Yawasop from Panah's camp, Ram Gadal Gabarium, we've all been trying to basically show you guys who the Greeks are, right? The true history of the Greeks. So I kind of started it off trying to discover Dan, me finding out that's probably where my people come from. And then I found out that's exactly where my people come from. So we started with that. They watched my video. One I did, the first one I did last year and a half ago, however long it was. Hey, what's up, y'all? There he is in the building. One of them right there, right? So tonight we're gonna be playing a video because they actually have a lot of sources that I don't have to substantiate things that I was telling you guys a year ago, right? And then of course sources to substantiate things that I've showed you guys that I had sources for. So I figured since they had such a Panad did a phenomenal video the other day, you know what I'm saying? And I think he did it Friday, Saturday, something like that, right? But video is dope. It's like 3 hours long. We obviously not gonna be able to show the whole entire thing. But if you guys don't watch their channel, Ram Gadal Gabarium, y'all need to subscribe. You know what I'm saying? They are brothers of ours. They've been brothers since we was at SOT. You know what I'm saying? Stayed brothers afterwards and still brothers now. So, yeah, great historians. For those of y'all that like my class, like the history and stuff like that, that's definitely a channel for you because Yahweh and Panah, basically do their thing all the time with that type of stuff, right? So, yeah. So like 2 weeks ago, we went over Ariala's video. Ariala went into some things showing how, you know, Israelites basically had a hand in starting the Greek civilization. Before that, Yahweh did a video, right, which we mentioned. We showed that video too, like some months ago before the new year, right? And now we're doing it with Panah's video. So we've literally gone full circle. Everybody in the group now. We've shown everyone's video. They showed mine to the people on their channel. They watched it, stuff like that. So we all in a collective group are just basically trying to show everybody in the Israelite community that the Greeks that a lot of you guys have in your minds, especially those of you on that, you know, new wave of the saving the heathenism, right? But for those of you guys that are on that type of stuff right now, this puts you in a situation where you have to ask yourself some critical questions. If brothers like us have proof that the Greek civilization was started by Israelites and that we literally were there the entire time, like not part of the time, not some of the time, but like the whole damn thing, right? Which you're gonna see proved in this video. It links us to people I was telling you guys about before, right? Sea peoples, Egyptians, the Phoenicians, you know what I'm saying? People of Turkey, Ionians, Spartans, right? And then from there, it branches off into a bunch of other things. So basically, just wanted to show you guys this video to substantiate the fact that the reason there's no difference between Jew nor Greek in the New Testament is because, as we've always said within the camp spectrum of this community, right? There's literally no difference. There's no difference. There's no difference between Jew nor Greek because they're the same damn people, right? So the Christian church teaches that the Greeks and the Gentiles, they're different. They're supposed to be different people. The way it's been brought to us in history class is that Greeks were white folks, right? Greeks were Caucasians. Greeks are Indo-Europeans, right? And that's not true. I told you guys they've classified everybody as Greek due to not wanting to get into the nuances of the different names and the different classifications of the Greeks and their civilization at the time, right? But we literally have been trying to dive into that, and Panah did a phenomenal job of literally putting it in order for us in this video, which is why I said I'm just going to show you guys this, because some of y'all don't understand the stuff that be coming out of my mouth. So we're going to make it, nice and articulate from somebody else. So let me put this up real quick for y'all, right? This is for historical purposes only. So there's going to be a bunch of precepts within the video. I'm not going to pull no precepts today. We're literally going to be watching this. This is a video watching type class today. So I want y'all to understand that. So take your notes, right? This is no different than any other history class that we would do, as if I was teaching the history. So take your notes, pull out your pen, your pad, right? Get your highlighters to mark your Bibles, because there's going to be things, as I've shown you guys through my PowerPoint, right? Scriptures that he's going to put together where you're going to be able to link historical facts with this time period in the Bible that the Bible is talking about at that present time, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. And one more time, shout out to them brothers, man.
To summarize.
And House of Bread 2, Ariala, right? And the brothers over there, shout out to them as well. You know what I'm saying? And to Masada, because they messing them up on the doctrine side. So it's like we hitting them with the historical stuff, and then you got Ariala and them doing a little bit of both. And it's like us and Ram Gadal, we just straight smacking y'all with the history when it comes to this stuff to debunk what them brothers is teaching over there, at the Gentile school.
That's what we're going to go into in the links. But there are several links I do have to tune into. So
let me,
because they're very important. Okay.
Spot I want to start.
Shalom Eliel.
Oh shit.
Another great jam today.
All right, let's start right here.
God. In this presentation, I will demonstrate that biblical nations descending from the 12 tribes of Israel, specifically Judah and Dan today, have not only pioneered Greek mythology and renowned histories, but I will connect how they have been founders of many of the great city-states and civilizations of Greece, Rome, and Asia Minor during early Greek eras. However, due to the rise of quote-unquote Edomite Hellenization, much of this history has been credited to Indo-European fabrications.
All right. So I am going to do some pausing and some pointing out and some adding to what the brother is saying, right? That's basically why I'm doing this video. But I want to show you guys some stuff because y'all know I don't be having all the time to put together the PowerPoints and stuff all the time. And he did it. It was phenomenal, marvelous. He put in a lot of information, all the stuff we've been talking about, all the stuff I found, all the stuff they found, stuff I didn't find that corroborates what I found, and stuff Ariala found that corroborates what they found, and then stuff that Ariala didn't find that they found that corroborates what Ariala found. It's like everything's in this one video. So it's no need for me to just pull out my PowerPoint because, you know, hey, we can just go over this. But first point is I want you guys to look at the garb here, right? The warrior clothing, this late Bronze Age presentation, right, of the sea people. So this is Hellenic armor, right? You see they got the horns. If you pay attention to crowns that brothers like myself wear, we always put the horns on them, right? That's a spiritual thing. Probably didn't understand what that was for, but I understood it, right? Then you got the fringes. You got two different types. You got your fringes like many wore on the bottom of their garment, right? Then you got your zit type fringes, right? Here on the 4 quarters. So you got them literally wearing both, right? This shield right here is the same shield that the Norse wear. I actually have one as a clip brooch that I wear on my suits at work because my team name for the people that come into my office is called the Dane Law. Like I went straight, I'm all the way in with this thing, right? So, but that is a Norse Viking shield, right? Which proves that these are the same people that before they became Norse Vikings, they're sea people. Before sea people, they're Israelites, right? So that's what we're going to talk about in this lesson today. We're literally going to be breaking down to you exactly who these people are. Hey, Shalom, King. So, big cap Yahweh in the building. So, but yeah, Shalom Alaikum. But that's what this is, right? So I want you guys to realize there's going to be a lot of historical things that you're going to see here that match up the way we dress, right? You're going to see that our people were still wearing these clothings in Greece before captivity, right? So the entire Greek civilization, not just from the pantheon of gods, because we've already proved in other lessons that we brought that to the world, right? But we're also going to prove in this lesson as far as the script. I've showed you guys before that Hebrew is supposed to be similar to Greek, right? He's actually going to bring the linguistic scholars quote out in this video. So there's going to be things you'll get to put with your eyes, right? See, instead of me just telling you things, you'll get to hear it. Instead of you just saying an article about it, you'll get to physically see what this lady wrote and what these men write, right? Because we got archaeologists telling you things about this stuff too. Literally linking and tying the name of Dan to these people, as I was telling you before. But not just Dan, other Israelites too. Hell, there were some people that were involved in this that I didn't know before. I knew about Simeon. I told you guys that. But we're also going to find out Issachar is also involved in this stuff. And we already know about Judah, right? So there's multiple northern kingdom tribes, Asher as well, right? And there's scriptures that we've brought up where one in particular in Judges where, you know, Dan stayed in ships and basically Asher did the same thing. And brothers was trying to figure out exactly why that was. We gave you the history, right? Because other brothers in the community never explained it correctly. So it's like that type of stuff. You're actually going to get to see it for your eyes, right? To put together as a stamp in your brain forever, right? As far as the history and the things we were explaining to you guys. So pay very close attention to this stuff, right? Because he's got a lot of visuals as well.
Right. And we got
that's the first thing. As we know, Indo-Europeans or the Edomite Europeans or the Caucasian Europeans typically take credit for Greece and Rome, right? Both of them at the same time. But we know in history, if you dive into it, the Greeks and the Romans have different names because they're not supposed to be the same people in history, even though we group them in as the same people in history, right? And I myself, at the very beginning of my walk in the truth, I was guilty of this. I once taught them as if they were all Edomites. They just were Edomites that came about at different times. But as we found out together about 2 years ago, that's not true. The word Greek itself doesn't even come to play until Israelites step on the land, right? Like there was no such thing as a Greek until Israelites were involved in the culture with the Peloponnesians, with the Ionians, you know what I'm saying, with the people of Japhet, with the Minoans, with the Mycenaeans. So these are people, names that you all have heard before if you've been on these classes, but now you're going to actually get to see them tied together, right? So one more time, shout out to the brothers that's helping me do this work.
Examples of iconoclasm. When you look at coins, when you look at modern day images, you'll think, oh, everybody has this visage of an Edomite. Even the term Indo-European is a modern term, okay? Because what Caucasians desire to do is they try to make themselves indigenous to Greek culture. And I'm going to show you how Edomites, how they adopted Greek culture that Israelites influenced.
Shalom, Kawan. I didn't see you in there, bruh. This is good brother too. He be on the classes teaching, so y'all shout out to him as well. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we here for the Ram Gadar-nology and the Panology and the Yawasology and all of that, right? That's what we here for. Koanology.
Influenced. Whether these fabrications be due to iconoclasm, the altering of frescoes, or the blatant dismemberment of memorabilia to distort historical figures and their original bloodlines, it is an attempt to fracture powerful links to ancient Greek histories of old to further validate the Holy Bible. So they don't want the Bible to be validated. Even Greek historians, right, that we're going to go into, they mention men like Moses, etc., etc. Okay, they mention specific characters, and why they want you to believe that these things were unreal is because they don't want any connection to the Bible when it comes to historical tribal names, migrations, epics, etc. Because they do.
And that's what I wanted to jump into as well, right? Because one thing he's going to go into, he's going to mention epics. He's going to bring in history that validates the epics not being just this made up fantasy thing. So those people we were telling you guys about, right? Danaeus and Eber and Finn and all them people, right? That these Greek mythology and these epics in history, whether they be Celtic epics or Greek epics or Scottish epics, right? They're all not really fake stories. They're literal real stories that have real people that they're talking about, right? From real tribes, really from Israel. And they track their history by tracing these people and these patriarchs down, right? Tracking and recording different important things that they did, tracking and recording groups of people that they took with them while they were doing these things. And then they get forever like analyzed in history as epics. You know what I'm saying? No different than the apotheosis thing we were talking about. When the Greeks make you a god, they turn the story into like a fantasy Greek god epic, if you will, right? But it's really a real story. It's real-ish. You know what I'm saying? It's real stuff that's really explaining to you how these people either got to the land, their migration pattern, how they colonized the land, who they had as their king while it was happening, all these different things, right? That's what these epics are. That Odyssey that they taught you about when you were in school, middle school, high school, whatever year it was when you learned about it, right? I learned about it in middle school. So like, but the Odyssey it's a story about Israelites and Ionians in the way that we literally like were living amongst each other and different things we were doing, wars that were happening, different journeys we were taking together, and they were documented, right? Now in history, we paint the picture like these are white guys that were doing this stuff, finding Greece and, you know, making all these different territories and creating places and civilizations that they still look at as wonders of the world today. But it was really our people. We weren't in Africa swinging from vines and trees like they try to tell us, right? During this month, we were actually creating the civilizations that they teach us about in school that they've now whitewashed, right?
Do not want to validate the Bible. Next slide. Certain mainstream historians will hide national Israelite ties to historical evidences due to the biblical superiority complex of the Israelite race. Because, you know, the Most High said that we're going to be above all nations. Well, they're trying to exterminate that purpose. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to show you how we had preeminence in Greek culture. We have to get from the understanding of there was only a Samaritan apostasy. There was also a Greek apostasy. There was an Egyptian apostasy. You see that in the book of Jeremiah when.
So we've always had people going to and from these lands. We've always had people that had to be shepherds to people to and from these lands. We've always had people that had to be disciples to people to and from in these lands, right? So, hell, we even had people run into these lands for like refuge at different times in the Bible, multiple people, right? So it's like these are folks in lands and cultures we've always been tied to, even though technically they were all separate, right? The Phoenicians are separate than the Egyptians, and the Israelites are separate than all three, and you know the Greeks are separate than all of those groups that I was talking about. So that's 4 different groups of people that literally interacted with each other. The thing you have to understand is within those 4 groups of people, the Israelites make up 2 of those 4 groups. We would be the Greeks and we would be the Israelites. That's the thing. It's just no different than now as we discontinue from our heritage and we start grasping other things and meeting other people and attaching ourselves to their culture, which is something we weren't supposed to do, which is why certain people were supposed to be destroyed, right? We started to change our names and change how people were able to identify us, or just allow the way that they were calling us based off their languages to be the way that we would reflect how we were identified in those particular lands. So names that I told you guys before, Dinyan for Dan in Egypt, you're going to hear that. Danan for Dan in Greece, you're going to hear that, right? Then you're going to hear things like Ionians and Aeonians, right? Which is literally either Japhet or us with Japhet, right? You got Spartans, which is us in Japhet, plus other Israelites, right? You got the Maccabees, you got Scythians, you got Etruscans, you got Celts. These are all different names that we had that we adopted throughout time. Anglo-Saxons, Danes, right? So to put that in perspective, it kind of starts at the beginning around Greek culture. This is really when we started doing it. And it starts very soon after the Exodus. It wasn't a whole long period. It wasn't fully into Judges that brothers waited to start migrating and moving to other places. You're going to find out that we basically was moving right after we left Egypt. We was connecting ourselves to other people right afterwards, right? And once we're in the wilderness, right, after we've established Israel, and even through the time of the Judges, we're traveling and moving to and fro, back and forth the whole entire time, just connecting ourselves to different cultures and civilizations. And as we do so, when they go colonize something, we're colonizing it with it. So that also leaves room for when there's new places that are now being taken over, new places being put on the map. We're actually there while that's being done. We're naming these places with these people. We're helping them bring the alphabet. The alphabet they're using is actually our characters and stuff like that. We're going to prove all of this stuff. So pay attention. It's going to get real interesting.
This Southern Kingdom was saying that we're going to go into Egypt and worship who? The Queen of Heaven. Well, they were worshiping the Queen of Heaven in Greece as well, and that pantheon of Babylon, right, that Egypt adopted, and some Israelites took it into Greece, okay? So it says, therefore, terms like myth or speculation smother truth. Actual epic is myth because it's poetry. Art and tale is saturated within ancient Greek mythology, which can distort literal linguistic, but like today, movies are a form of art that imitates life. So during major Greek eras, the entertainment of the time was saturated with influences from the arts of war, epic, philosophy, theater, and science. So right here, you have a picture, relief at Medinet Habu. The Sheridan peoples depicted with horned helmets from the mortuary temple of Ramses III at Medinet Habu, right? We're going to learn about what that is. This is 1175 BC, right? These were epics that were in the annals of Ramses III, right? And so you'll see modern movies with these sea crusaders and these pirates pioneering civilizations. Well, majority of that was pioneered by Israelite tribes. Now I want to go back really quick because we had a little bit of technical difficulties earlier, but I want to back up. If you see the horns on their head, this was also worn by who? The Vikings, right? But if you want to learn who the sea peoples are, when Israelites went off into the worship of the horned god and things of that nature, and that apostasy on the left-hand side, look how they depict the sea peoples. Let's go back to this picture. If you can see, Do you see the tassels on the four corners of this, brother? This was considered a Shekelesh, a tribe called the Shekelesh of the Sea Peoples.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to learn a little bit about them too. They're also in Greek mythology, right? But also look at how they depict the Sea Peoples in their garments,
Oh, my bad.
in their armor. You see the horn, right? And look at the fringes.
Mm-hmm. Let's speed up a little bit.
And you see at the bottom left, bridging the gap.
All right, look.
See people, sea people.
And I do encourage y'all to go back because I'm gonna be jumping through this a little
Theodore
bit.
Siculus. We're going to go into him
I
several
encourage
times.
y'all to go and watch this entire video on your own time because there's gonna be a lot of history that y'all need to see, right? Especially if you're into it like me and you like to take notes to be able to, regurgitate this type of stuff, whether you're teaching or you're on Clubhouse or whatever it might be, right? So this is just a lot of stuff to have in your back pocket for anybody that's a teacher or somebody that wants this history to be able to prove we are actually the Greeks. So keep that in mind.
In this presentation, he stated Cadmus. We're going to learn about Cadmus in the future. Cadmus was responsible for bringing the linear A system, right, of Greek, right, into Greece and into the Isles of Europe and into Europe, right? He's accredited for this, right? And if you understand, the Dorians, which we're going to go into, they're accredited to it too. And we're going to figure out who.
That's another name you guys should be, that should ring a bell in your ears. It should be recognizable to you, right? The Dorians, because we've been talking about that, right? And who they are. So
who brought that linear A system into Greece. So Cadmus, so we're going to go into an example of how art imitates life and how things can get, distorted over time. And you can see their tales and their epics in theater.
all right.
Initiates were given the account that gods, he by the descendants of Cadmus, those are called the Cadmeans, by the way. Father of Osiris, who was held in high regard among the Greeks for his singing, initiatory rites, and instructions on things divine, was entertained as a guest by the descendants of Cadmus. Those are called the Cadmeans, by the way, and accorded unusual honors in Thebes. And since he had become conversant with the teachings of the Egyptians about the gods, he transferred the birth of the ancient Osiris to more recent times, and out of regard for the descendants of Cadmus, instituted a new initiation in the ritual of which the initiates were given the account that Dionysus had been born of Semele and Zeus. This is a depiction of Cadmus. By the way, you see him. He was known for slaying the dragon, which is a metaphor, right? That's neither here nor there right now. But look how he look. Look how they have him depicted on this vase, a brother.
And he's not white, you see. And I pointed this out. The reason I wanted to do this class, which was kind of crazy, was that this past weekend at camp, me and Yahweh Dawa were by ourselves with a crowd full of Edomites. Like we literally had a crowd, like how we used to have back at HOR back in the day at 5 Points, but it was like black people. We had like a crowd of Edomites this weekend at camp because the black folks wouldn't stop. The white folks were stopping this week. I don't know why. They looked at the sign, started asking us questions. Next thing you know, we went from talking to 2 people to 15 in like 2 minutes. So it's like, I started asking them questions about Vikings and stuff, and just to see if they knew anything about black Vikings or black Greeks or anything like that. Stuff that we can now substantiate because we got sources, right? They didn't know what the hell I was talking about. So even when it comes to them, they don't know a bunch of their history, and what they don't know or do know comes from them for real, right? But as you see, there's actual documented facts. Even when you watch movies, old school movies like that Hercules cartoon that came out in the 90s, right? You watch the beginning of the credits of that and the end of the credits of that, they're showing you vases from the Minoans, the Mycenaeans, and the Dorians, right? Where they're literally giving you art from Greece, and all the people on the art are depicted as black. So there's too much proof, right? To like admit of doubt that this stuff didn't happen. You can't do it.
And then these rights, partly because they were deceived
and then
nature.
This is important, right?
And the people observe these initiatory rites
because you see, they know how to draw white people, as you see, right? They leave the white person the same color as the vase, and they paint the black person obviously black. So let's not make it seem like, oh, well, maybe they just painted everybody black. No, we have proof of such where they didn't, right? This is why Hercules in the movie Hercules looks the way he does. He's got the red hair and the, peach face because they wanted him to look like that. But according to the depictions of him, right, on these actual vases, when he's being depicted, he's not a white guy. They have him depicted as a black person, just like they have Dionysus, right, as a black person. They wouldn't have Dionysus as a black man and Hercules as a white man. That doesn't make any sense. So best believe Zeus would be depicted as a black guy. Poseidon would be depicted as a black guy. Achilles would be depicted as they're all black guys. All right.
It's partly because they were deceived through their ignorance, partly because they were attracted to them by the trustworthiness of Orpheus and his reputation in such matters. And most of all, because they were glad to receive the god as a Greek, which, as has been said, is what he was considered to be. Later, after the
a Greek, aka an Israelite, which we're gonna prove all that and how they go together hand in hand, and they're not. You can't have one without the other very, very soon.
writers of myths and poets had taken over this account of his ancestry. The theaters, now, this is a first century BC historian telling you about theaters centuries before him. So it says the theaters became filled with it, like you see today, Marvel. Like you see today, they just keep recycling the same story. They might change the tradition a bit, but they keep recycling it.
Says, like you said, Marvel, Spider-Man, Batman, you know what I'm saying? The whatever. They just recycle the same crap. Even when it comes to history pertaining to these people, you got the Anglo-Saxon movies and the Dane movies, right? They recycle the same crap. They put it all on Netflix and just change the name of it. Same characters, everything, right? It's same stuff. This is a tactic.
Says the theaters became filled with it, and among following generations, faith in the story grew stubborn and immutable. In general, they say the Greeks appropriate to themselves the most renowned of both Egyptian heroes and gods, and so also the colonies sent out by them. So what's this saying? That there's an adoption of culture that predated what was being displayed as the at the time that they were claiming to be the originators of these stories, of these epics, right? This is from his book, Bibliotheca Historica book.
The difference between Deacon Iathon going over this history, he doesn't mention Dan, so he doesn't tell you who the history is actually about. So it's one thing to tell you that the blacks were Greeks, which they do. We've all been doing that, right? They're not telling you what actual tribes are involved, which we're going to see documentation from these historians about what actual tribes they link to these sea peoples and these people in Greece, the Ionians, the Spartans, the Lacedaemonians, the Aeonians. So in all the different subgroups that they have amongst them, Athenians, right? These are all Israelite people, like literally by name, and they have the tribes that break down into what groups, like literally. So we'll talk about that, but they don't go that deep into it. Nobody else has actually, which is why this is important history for y'all to get. We're literally the only ones doing it. So,
book 1, section 23, line 4 through 8. This is another picture depicted of Dionysus, who was originally Nicias. We're going to get into that, a real person. It says, this is Dionysus.
As I told you, the apotheosis. So we have their real names, like Hercules would be, Samson, right? So you can find very easily who the people would be that these gods are named after, right? But through the apotheosis tradition, they change the name, give it more of a godlike title, and then the man also begins to, or woman, begins to develop godlike attributes that come with this new name, this new title, right? And sometimes they could do it twice. So Samson went from Samson to Hercules, and then from Hercules to Thor, right? So he went from man to demigod to full god. Like they do that. It's apotheosis. So yeah, that's how that works. They can change your name and stuff like that.
With two maenads holding a hare. Now, let's read Proverbs 30 and 26. It says, the conies are but a feeble folk, yet make they their houses in the rocks. This is where you get the ideology of the rabbit hole, right? What do you understand today about when they say we don't want to go down the rabbit hole? That's an ancient Babylonian knowledge of mysticism.
And if y'all didn't realize, they got a rabbit in their hand right here with the two maids and talking to Dionysus. So yeah, this is a whole. What you're gonna realize is because Esau doesn't make anything, a lot of the sayings and crazy things that they say actually come from cultures that we started a long time ago. We just, due to history, have forgot that these are sayings we actually started a long time ago, right? So let's
To say you have
move on. Oh, there we go. All right, now this is very important. Check this out. He's going to talk about it, but these are the different eras in Greek history, right? So you got the Proto-Greek era, the Dark Age, which should stand out to you. And these time periods, by the way, right? They should stand out to you too if you were paying attention to anything I was teaching over the last, year, right? Especially on the PowerPoint that I did for this. Because I showed you guys something specific when it came to the introduction of the Denins and the Dorians before the quote unquote Dorian invasions, right? When it says we got there. So there are brothers that tried to challenge me on these dates and then found out they was wrong. So, and now I don't have to challenge them because it's brothers like Yawasop and Panah that are literally pow. Like they're giving you the same dates. And we ain't talk about this. This is stuff I don't even know website or wherever. I don't know what source this is. So me and Panah didn't talk about this. This is his own source and his own dates, the way that I came up with my own source and my own dates, and somehow they freaking are the same thing. So ironic, right? That should tell you that one, most of these historians that you guys follow in this community that think they have their dates correct don't know what the F they're talking about. But conversation for another time. So check this out.
Talking about, and in order for you to understand what I'm going to get into, right, you have to understand the historical Greek eras. So first, we're going to go into Proto-Greek era, 3000 to roughly 1100 BC. This period includes the early Minoan and Mycenaean civilizations. These are the actual Japhetic people that were in these regions of Anatolia, Turkey, Europe, going into Italy, Greece, the Mycenaean coast, etc., Achaia, right? This is when the actual Japhetic people were there. The Mycenaeans.
So those that controlled the islands of the sea, this is them. And if you look into it, right? Because we were also talking about who we think Japhet is. So we'll finally be able to give you guys that full lesson in depth now because we got confirmations and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's exactly what I told you guys they were before, right? People that make up the Polynesian nations, the Melanesian, what's them people? Polynesians, Melanesians, and there's another Nesians, but all three of the Nesians, right? They would make up the sea peoples literally today. Yeah, that's them. That's Japhet. That's where the majority of them went. Obviously, there's them other places too, right? Because they were part of Japhet that was locked in with the Phoenicians. So some of them also probably are locked up in Africa or some places in other parts of Europe and stuff like that too. But for the most part, they're still in islands of the sea doing what they do, right? And some of us are around them as well, as we've proven.
Mycenaeans were known for their palaces, linear B script. That's important to know because we see an evolution of script during a certain specific time when a certain people group showed up.
Yeah, Octave. So just like Octave said, right? Some of them we know are our people, right? To give example, you got because I spoke to you and broke y'all down how they actually do their tribes and stuff. It's not based off of tribes per se. It's based off families, right? So each family has like a tribal name. And then you marry within the family of people that are connected to your people. So the Rock's mother's people will be black, right? Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Rikishi, all them folks, right? Just to give some names y'all might know, some Samoans. And then like actual Samoans would be like the wild Samoans. They were cousins to Jimmy, but on Jimmy's mama's side, right? So Jimmy's mama's side was a different group of Samoans. And as you see, if y'all know anything about the Wild Samoans and like Jimmy Superfly and the Rock's Mama and Rikishi and them, they all built a little different. Like authentic Samoans, they all got the big body build and stuff like that. Rikishi built like that, but just because he's fat. If you look at his build, he's kind of like he's a black guy. So there's images of him when he was small, that type of stuff, right? But when you look at them, they got a different build, different everything, right? So it's kind of easy to distinguish who is who. It's just right now when they're in the landmass, they all got similar cultures. So, but we'll have a lesson coming on that real soon because I think I cracked that code too, as far as how to distinguish who is who within that landmass of those people. So, yeah.
In those regions and begin to rule and colonize. It was the linear age
all them people
that was introduced. And connections to the Trojan War myths. Now, what they like to do with the Trojan War myth is to say, oh, the Trojan War happened in about 14th century B. No, the Trojan War happened around the 9th century BC. Okay? And we're going to show you who the Trojans were. The Roman fathers, right? And you read about them because they crossed paths with Greek mythology because of their epics, right? And they were also tied to Greeks as family. And we're going to get into that. This period encompasses the early migrations and the formation of the Greek cultural and linguistic identity and Aegean civilizations, that Aegean Sea, right?
And something else to point out, because I didn't really think about this when I was watching it, but if you like watch the Trojan War movie and stuff, and you've ever seen like the movies on Achilles, they always make Achilles that black guy, right? The bald black dude with the big, I forget his name, but they always got him playing Achilles. You know why? Because historically they could find Achilles to be a black guy. There's no other historical documentation to prove he was white because of the time period of the Greeks that he was involved in. Look at how old the Trojan War is, right? So like, according to the history, the first Edomites didn't even get to Macedonia or close to the land, right? Until like around 800 when the Veneti moved in, right? So we literally can prove the people involved in the Trojan War were like not of Edomite origin. You feel me? So yeah, we can prove these things. We can prove that the Mycenaeans and the Minoans were not of Edomite origin. We can prove that the Dark Ages around 1100 to 800 BC was all Israelites that were moving into the land. When Homer starts talking about the Danaans, right, those are black people that he's talking about. When you look at the art, it's proven. So, like, yeah, let's not be stupid there either.
In that whole region. Dark Age. I wonder why they call it Dark Age. Just like they call them medieval times, the Dark Ages. Because
just so y'all know, this ain't the same. This isn't King James Dark Ages. This is a Greek Dark Age, ironically, right? So now you're seeing, yeah, historians are very bad with the creativity, right? They're not very creative. So, I mean, look, Dark Ages, the age when the darks ruled the world. Medieval time period, they have one. They have one for antiquity. They have one for Greece. But they don't teach you this part in school, right? Because there's no way to make it seem like orcs were in Greece. They could do that in England because they got Lord of the Rings. But they haven't made a Lord of the Rings for Greece. So it's like when you think of Dark Ages, you're not going to think of white man and orc. So it's going to be some type of dark history they're going to have to show you that's going to match up with that, which is going to, you know, put a nail in the coffin if they were going to do that, which is why they don't talk about this age, particularly in school.
Because they don't want you to know something very important about this era right here.
Mm-hmm.
It was shortly after.
If you recall, around the time period that we told you guys, the Danaans move into the land and Dorians have their first couple waves of invasions, if you will, right? According to Google, when we first started, they put it around 1300 to 1100 BC, right? we see that the Dark Ages start at 1100 BC. Ironic.
After the migration of Israel out of Egypt, a few hundred years after, they call that the Dark Ages. I wonder why. Following the collapse of the Mycenaean civilization. Hold up. Following the collapse of the Mycenaean civilization, I wonder who caused it to collapse.
We talked about it. They got two names, Danians and Dorians, but they are the same ends. You dig?
In that late Bronze Age period going into the Iron Age, Greece entered a period of reduced cultural and economic activity with fewer written records and smaller communities. Right? So that's from 1100 to roughly 800. They call that the Dark Ages because they don't want you to know. Very important epochs during that time. Archaic period, circa 800 to 480 BCE. This era saw the rise of city-states, polis, like Athens and Sparta. The development of the Greek alphabet. That's the linear A. We're going to get to something important all throughout this concerning
Abada, ABC, alphabet. We brought that. They had a linear B script, so theirs was different. So the Japhetic people, the script that they originally spoke was different than what we brought to the land and what they, built the Greek language off of. So Greek actually is built off of linear A script, right? The Mycenaean language was built off of linear B script. They're clearly two different languages. So put that in your cap.
Concerning the Greek script, right? The birth of philosophy and the creation of epic poetry, including Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. So shortly after the Dark Ages, Homer, he does majority of his writings about the quote unquote Dark Ages. I wonder why they're calling it the Dark Ages. Because Homer was writing about Israelites. Classical period, circa 480 to 323 BC. This is when they began to make much of this epic and history of Greece, the Greek culture, the Greek heritage. They begin to present it in the theaters and things of that nature, right? It says, this period is marked by the height of Athenian democracy, the flourishing of art, drama, and philosophy, and the conquests of Alexander the Great. It produced great philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hellenistic period. Remember the armor, the Hellenic armor? I wonder why they attribute the Hellen people to this era. You know why? Because they didn't have a culture. Edomites did not have a culture, so they adopted Hellenistic culture, which came from the original Black Greeks. Following Alexander's conquests, Greek culture spread across the Mediterranean and Near East, leading to a fusion of Greek and local cultures. This era saw advancements in science, art, and philosophy. Roman, Greece, and beyond 1st century AD onward, after the conquest of Greece by Rome, Greek culture profoundly influenced Roman art, philosophy, and governance, while Greece itself became a vital part of the Roman Empire, right? We know some of that history, right? Next slide. So here's some fundamentals we're going to learn. You have to know what Phoenician is. You have to know what Greek means, and you have to know what Shittim or Kittim mean. Now, there are links that I'm going to allow you to, get once this is uploaded, and you can read for yourself, because I just don't want to jeopardize the display. You have to know Ionian. You have to know Aeolian and Dorian. Write Dorian down because Dorian is in red for a reason. I remember I was scoffed at on Clubhouse because I was explaining who the Dorians were. Well, we're here now. We're here for the panology, right? It says the Achaeans. Well, we're not going to go into the Achaeans today, right? But they'll be addressed on another presentation. But these are the four major ethnic groups that you deal with when dealing with ancient Greek civilizations. So let me give you some type of information you're going to be getting into. The first wave of sea peoples by Carlos J. Maru, 2020, right? Listen to what he says, right? Concerning the Ekwesh or the Akawasha, the origin.
And he's going to talk about Cyprus and Canaan. If y'all remember my first lesson that I did, I showed you guys, proved to you via science.com that the tribe of Dan had first established, and they were the first people to establish anything on Cyprus. So it's a known fact in history that Dan are the people to basically make this island what it is today. There was no Japhetic history on it. The only history from the coronation, if you will, the beginning of Cyprus comes from the tribe of Dan. So keep that in mind, right? Danea. And these are the same people that Homer would write in the Iliad and Odyssey as the Danans, right? So same people, literally, same group.
Original Achaeans who came from Anatolia into Achaia. This is what he said. Once established in Cyprus and Canaan, the sea peoples of this migratory wave may have planned the attack on Egypt with the help of the Libyans in order to weaken the Egyptian resistance to their settlement on lands controlled by the Pharaoh, both in Canaan and Libya. A contingent of Ekwesh, Teresh, that's another sea people tribe, and Shekelesh. We're going to go into.
So those people that we showed you at the very beginning, right? The ones he had, that I showed you, had the Viking shield. They had on seats. They had on the horns for the crown, right? And they have fringes too that they wear sometimes. That's the Ekwesh, Teresh, and the Shekelesh. She was showing you a Shekelesh warrior at that time, right? Those are sea peoples. It's a mix of Israelites and Phoenicians, literally. Remember when I showed you guys Chat GPT? Well, according to them, a mix of Phoenicians and Israelites. When I showed you that Chat GPT breakdown, Chat GPT actually told us the truth and said that sometimes in history, they mixed up the Israelites with Phoenicians because there was no need to put a distinguishing factor between us, because what they did there was the same. Occupation was the same. Where we lived was the same. The language you spoke was damn near the same because we both used the A script. So they just labeled us as Phoenicians, as people that come from the Levant, instead of, placing us under the name Israelite. We proved that to you. We showed it to you historically, and we showed it to you via Chat GPT. And now you see it via historical documentation from Carlos Moreau, right? So, or Maru, however you pronounce homeboy last name. But yeah, these are Ekwesh, Teresh, and Shekelesh warriors, right? And they're circumcised. Why? Because that's part of the Israelite tradition. They're keeping the law, right?
Go into all of this. Warriors who were circumcised possibly sailed to the west and joined other contingents of sea peoples in Cyprus and the Aegean belonging to the Shurdan and Luca peoples. They continued their navigation southwards, Egyptians in the Battle of Perea.
So, and then you see in the Egyptian records, they called them the Dinian, right? Because they had a bunch of different battles with us, right? So, I want to show you guys this as well. I'm kind of going to read through this just to fast forward a little bit. So you got the three Greek tribes, right? If you will, three Greek classifications. So you got Ionians, which we've talked about, right? Your seafaring Asiatic Greek descended from Javan. Okay, so these are your original Javanites, associated with Asia Minor and maritime trade, right? So they still are associated with Asia Minor and maritime trade. They deal with now, the sea islands in the Polynesia and Melanesia and different places like that, Samoa and stuff. So yeah, coastal Greeks shaped by trade networks, migration, dialect rather than strict ethnic descent. Okay, and that's kind of still how they run their thing, because like I told you, the tribes aren't based off of tribal thing. It's more so a family lineage connector that they do. So, Dorians, invaders who overthrew the Mycenaeans and the Minoans, the Dorian invasion, right? Israelites, regional elites who adopted a Doric identity, cultural and linguistic shift rather than mass invasion. And they technically didn't adopt the Doric identity, they brought the Doric identity. They are the Doric, right? The Doric identity came from them. They're the Dorians, right? So, and then the Aeolians, which is literally both groups put together. So, remember when I told you about the Peloponnesian War and how there was uh, a joining together before that happened, and then a separation, if you will, for the most part, between us and Javan or us and Japhet, and then we band together again within those nations, which is how we end up getting back tight, right? So the Israelites in Athens and the Israelites of the, the Lacedaemonians and stuff like that, instead of going against each other, they end up coming together, right? So got the uh, two different leagues that were formed during the Peloponnesian War. And the result of this, plus a little bit before that, when we start moving to the land, right, you have this classification of Ionians and Dorians put together that they called Aeolians, right? So this is a transitional or secondary Greek group between Ionians and Dorians, independent dialect group with deep Bronze Age roots, especially in Thessaly, Lesbos, and Aeolus. So Thessaly should be something that's a name that's reminiscent to you, not just because of the Bible, but also because this is the first place that we told you and showed you guys that the Edomites moved into when moving into Macedon to try to take us over from this land. So yeah, but that's that. So what else did I want to show over here? Let me see. All right, yeah, this was just a little map, give you a little bit of history there. So, you got the major Mycenaean centers of Greece and Crete. You can't zoom in on the map, but it gave you some good information on here, right? And the names of the places, right? So, you got, in fact, let me see if you how quick.
Knossos. When Paul mentions the poets in Acts 17, Epimenides came from Knossos. And this is why he says to Titus that the Cretans are what?
He's almost done. But look, so we got different regions and places like this, right? So you got mainland Greece, you got Mycenae, mainland Greece, Tyrannus or Tyrans. You got mainland Greece, Pylos, mainland Greece, Sparta, Corinth, Thebes, Athens, and then Knossos, like you said, in Cadonia, right? So Crete. And for those who don't know, Cretians at this time also eventually went from being Mycenaean control to Israelite control. So but as you see, Mycenaean control over former Minoan palace, Mycenaean dominated center in western Crete. So
Are what? Liars and slow bellies. You know why? Because they were responsible for much of the Greek mythos. Yeah, these were Israelites. Okay.
All right. So yeah. Then the Phoenician thing. So
God, Jesus, withdrew himself with his disciples to the sea, and a great multitude from Galilee followed him, and from Judea, and from Jerusalem, and from Idumea, and from beyond Jordan, and they about Tyre and Sidon. And a great multitude, when they had heard what great things he did, came unto him. So there's a great multitude of Israelites in Tyre and Sidon. Why do we always think that Israel has to be detained to just their land? Well, they also ruled Tyre, Sidon. They were in Phoenicia. They were also responsible for much of the outpouring of culture coming from Phoenicia. Acts 11 and 18. When they heard these things, they held their peace and glorified God, saying, then have God also to the Gentiles granted repentance unto life.
yeah. And now you're seeing how Israelites like myself can make the claim, hey, Shalom says, that, people like Hannibal are Israelites, like emphatically. You know what I'm saying? Though he's listed as a Phoenician in history, a lot of our people that were around him are listed as Phoenicians in history, but they're actually Israelites, right? It's because them not wanting to keep the name of Israel in remembrance. They don't want people to know that these Israelites were black people, because it's hard to say that Hannibal was white. Most people in history know that he's a black guy, right? So it's like, well, we don't want to make this black guy an Israelite, because then that's going to make people have more questions than not, right? So he's Phoenician. And then they always, if you look up Phoenicians and you tie to where they tied him at, right? They always consider Phoenicians now in modern history, mainstream history, they consider them like Africans. So when you meet an intelligent Edomite historian from modern day, right, he'll consider Hannibal a Phoenician, but he'll also say he had like African characteristics, because they don't want to say Israelite, right? So keep that in mind too when it comes to the Phoenician thing. And of course, what we told you guys with Chat GPT. So this was a good slide right here, just to show you some art, right? Once again, they know how to draw a black person, they know how to draw a brown person, right? And they know how to draw Edomite. So, because the Edomites were a little bit lighter than that when they draw. This I wanted to show, this Hebrew and Greek thing. Well, let me see.
It's just simple, basic Greek definition, right? We're going to get into going into how Greek is a language, and how Greek is just simply talking about one who's influenced by Greek culture or Greek language, right? So when you read in the New Testament, we're debating all day, Greek is non-Israelite, Greek non-Israelite, non-Jewish. I mean, come on, let's throw that away now. You're calling yourself an American, okay? And there's different ethnicities in America. Let's stop. First Maccabees 1:1. And it happened after that, Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, right, which is Cyprus, right, in many places, and Greece as well. Sometimes it is attributes to Greece as well. It says, had smitten Darius.
I think in his case, it's supposed to be Greece. But like I told you guys, what Alexander's people did, because it'll tell you he's the first of his stead, right? Meaning the first of his people to rule, which we're going to read. But ironically, when you look at history, they try to tie themselves 3 kings before that and say that they're related to, the Spartans and the kings of the Aegean and the Achaean kings, right? Because there's Aegean and Achaean. So both of them are related. But yeah, they try to tie them to us, basically, right? Our kings that we had in the land by name, and say that they're related to these people. So since our kings that got to the land started in Cyprus, they just put Kittim, which, as he said, could be considered either Cyprus or it could be considered Greece, both of which were started by our people, though. So, yeah.
Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. Now, does it mean he was the first king over Greece? No. Talking about he was the first of his people to rule over Greece. It says, and made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth and went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. With this understanding of Phoenician and Greek, right? Understanding that Phoenicians were considered Shemitic people. They influenced much of Europe and those regions of the Mycenaean regions and Anatolia, etc. Right? It says we can clearly deduce that throughout Greek history, countless diverse tribes have settled Greek isles, speaking Greek dialects, and several city-state mainlands and isles have evolved concerning ethnic populations. Mm-hmm. As we study the sea peoples' migrational patterns to and from the European mainlands and isles, we can also conclude that the Shemitic Phoenician coasts were countless waves of Israelite tribes pioneering major Greek history.
Yep.
This is a book called Hebrew is Greek by Joseph.
Pay attention, because some of y'all, why is it that the Israelites in the New Testament wrote in Greek? Why didn't they just write in Hebrew? Well, they knew both. But the reason would be because a lot of them, just like how we don't write in Hebrew for those of us that can speak it, we decide to speak on the street in English. Same thing. There's a lot of our Israelites back in this time period weren't speaking Hebrew. They were speaking Greek because that was the language of the land and the place they were at, right? So that being the case, a lot of them learned how to speak it. Plus, you have to understand we were being forced to not speak our languages too while in captivity to these people. So Greek was just the easiest thing to do. Plus, there's two types of Greek. They had regular Greek, then they had Koine Greek, right? Koine Greek was literally our Greek. It's what we had created. So yeah, you got what's it? The Septuagint written in Koine, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, because Latin Vulgate and Latin. So Septuagint written in Koine Greek, right? Reason we wrote that in Koine Greek is because that's the Greek that we speak.
Joseph Yehuda. Remember that linear A system that we talked about? This was a very controversial book in 1982. Okay, let's read a little bit about it. The book Hebrew is Greek by Joseph E. Yehuda, published in 1982, is a highly controversial work of philology, going into language, that proposes that biblical Hebrew is fundamentally a dialect of Greek. Now, when he says a dialect of Greek, he's talking about the modern script being can have influences from the Paleo Greek, and he goes into how certain words are, near the same as the Greek, right? Because it's the same linear A system. I wonder who brought that linear A system. Hebrews, because they worked with a linear A system. Aleph, beta, alpha, beta, alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, that came.
All right. So the book is controversial because its core thesis contradicts well-established mainstream historical linguistics, which classify Greek as an Indo-European language and Hebrew as a Semitic language, right? So when you Google, unless you've broken algorithm and been able to find stuff, Google is going to tell you Hebrew and Greek aren't related because one is Shemitic and one is Indo-European. They do this classification on purpose, right? Reason being is because they don't want you to know what's what and what's connected to what, because then it'd be easy to find out what people are connected to what, because the Bible itself is written in both Hebrew and Koine Greek. So it would be too easy to be like, yo, like white people don't even say the people in the Bible are white no more. Now they tell you they're like Middle Eastern, right? So when you got things like ChatGPT telling you during antiquity, Middle Eastern people had black African skin tones, if they were to just tell you, yeah, Greek is black African skin tone language, like it wouldn't be good for the whole narrative of everything that they try to contain and keep secret within history, right? So they have to make one Indo-European, right? Mediterranean, if you will, and the other one Levant, which could be black, could be brown. And when I say brown, I mean like Gaddafi, So yeah, could be that, could be this, who knows? That's kind of how they want it to be. So a toss up, but it's not. We know exactly what people came up with what, which is why they have to do these classifications to keep a hard line on the classifications. Because if they don't, the speculation leads you into one. There's only one way you can speculate. One direction speculation leads you into, which is these people are Israelites. Which is why the proof and the artifacts and the resources and the sources that we're showing you guys even exist. Because when these people take out the bias of mainstream linguistic studies and historical studies, it literally points you to the same conclusion that we came up to. These stupid niggas with no college degrees and stuff like that, right? We literally coming to the same conclusion these people are coming to because we naturally don't have the bias that they have in their linguistic and historical studies, because we don't give a damn about that, right? We're just trying to find out the truth. So yeah, you remove the bias, it easily leads you to the conclusions that we're coming to, which is why these sources exist, because other people already came to these conclusions. This book was made in 1982, right? While brothers in the camps was trying to say, never mind. So Ionia.
Modern, like they Ionia. You can look up in the Encyclopedia Britannica. These are the Japhetic people. Okay. Anytime you see, historians see vases and specific culture um, of anything that could possibly be Israelite, they say, "Oh, it's Proto-Ionian.
Yeah.
It's Proto-Aeolian," knowing that it is clearly modern invaders, right? Because you can see in archaeology the connections to the coasts of Israel and Phoenicia in these regions. I'm gonna prove all of this.
So look, something I want to point out to you. You know, when you look up Assyrian or Babylonian art, you look up like the black obelisk, and you see the way that they draw the depictions of the people, it's always the same. The king always has this crazy long flowy beard and the long hair. He's always turned to the right, his feet facing the same direction, his face is facing, all that crap, right? They always got the little lion laying down next to him. Like, it's always the same type of art. That's how you know that the art comes from a specific geographical location, right? Same thing with this. We know that Ionian art on vases is Ionian art because it's always a black person on a vase, either butt naked or doing something crazy, right? Because for those of you who don't know, Ionians and Mycenaeans were not Ionian. The Minoans and Mycenaeans, mainly the Minoans, were like known open homosexuals. So there's even like vase art you can find where, yeah, homosexuals. So that's something that you got to understand. When it comes to the art, as far as kings, right? Just like how our kings, they have a specific look. Israelite art always has, the quote unquote seal of Israel, what they call Star of David, or the menorah, right? The Assyrian Babylonian art always has a king with these crazy fringes on and really long ass beard and long hair, right? And then Japhetic art always had the crazy hat, whatever they call it, right? That connects like a 10 strap beard. That's not actually a beard the dude has, that's his hat. And then, art that looks like that. So this is their art. This is how we know who they are, what time period it comes from. Because after we take them over, after the Danans come to play and Homer starts writing about them, and then after the Dorian invasion, sometime after that, the art and the way the art of the rulers is literally changes. You don't see this type of art no more, which is how we know there's a change in who the colonizers are. There's a change in who's ruling the land because the ruler's art changes, right? Which means it came from a different geographical location.
You can go into the Strong's H3120, the descendants of Javan, right? It says, one second, Genesis 10:2. The sons of Japheth.
And if you look, he kind of looked like a Samoan. If you ever seen Samoa Joe, he got the look. This dude look like Samoa Joe. Real talk. If you know who Samoa Joe, I keep mentioning wrestlers to y'all because like that's the only place in the world that I know Samoans are like famous, where you like could know them, unless you're like a UFC fighter fan or something like that. So Samoa Joe, if you Google him, that's who this guy looked like. If he put on a hat, he looked just like this, and he wear like lamb chop, or yeah, lamb chop little beard. His junk don't connect, so he got the like Tennessee country lamb chop look, but on a Samoan it looks crazy. So yeah, but that's what this dude looked like. He got no beard, no mustache, lamb chops, hat that connects, right? And they still got people that look like this today.
Gomer and Magog and Madai and Javan and Tubal and Meshech and Tiras.
All right, so that's Ionia. And then you got the Aeolians, right? Just to kind of read it. And Aliashians, right? This is gonna be important because Elisha, right? So or Elisha. So these are different groups, right? But it starts with the Hellenic tribes. You also got Ionians, you got Dorians, which is us two Hellenic tribes. So but it's supposed to be a mix between both of us, right? Both groups. So check this out.
The Aeolians, Aeolicians or Alashians, In the tapestry of ancient Greek civilization, the Aeolians stand as one of the major Hellenic tribes alongside the Ionians and Dorians. The Aeolians traditionally said to descend from the mythic ancestor Aeolus. So are we going to say they descended from a mythic ancestor named Aeolus, or do we just say the Bible says he descended from Elisha? It's going to be the same thing I'm going to prove with Dorian. Did they descend from Doris, a mythical god? Settled initially in Thessaly and later migrated to the western coast of Asia Minor, an area known as Aeolus. Connection to the Greek tribes. While the Ionians are often associated with maritime trade and the Dorians with military prowess, the Aeolians contributed their own cultural and linguistic influence to the Greek world. Each tribe played a crucial role in shaping the character of the Aegean Islands and the wider Greek territories. The Aeolians were known for their distinct dialect and their settlements in places like Lesbos and parts of the Anatolian coast. So they had distinct dialects. They weren't using the linear A script, right? And they had distinct dialects than that of Greek artifacts.
Mm-hmm. So look, the Dorians. We already talked about them, but I'm gonna read it real quick. So the Dorians were a major Greek tribe, were of the major Greek tribes, traditionally linked to the regions like Macedonia, Lacedaemon, right? Epirus, some in Miletus, and of course Athens. They migrated into the Peloponnese and other Greek areas around 12th century BCE, often referred to as the Dorian invasion. The idea that they came from the north is only an attempt to invalidate the Bible. And I showed you guys that, right? I actually proved to you who actually came from the north. It was people that came way after the Dorian invasion called the Veneti, who happened to be the Edomite tribe of what history calls Slavic barbarians that came from the north into Macedonia. So what they've done, as Panah explained earlier, they try to attribute and credit the quote unquote Indo-European, aka Edomites, with everything that happens in this region, right? Because they want you to think the people in this region are supposed to be white people. People that originated the region are supposed to be white people. So because of that thought that they want to implant in your brain, they have to make everything come from the north because they know that statistically, historically, in what's documented, that's where the first group of their people actually came from. So in order for them to make the claim substantiated, they have to draw a line from where they know they came from to where they know the history started. Like Israel, for example, right? To give a quick example, because it's no new thing under the sun, right? They did the same thing with Israel. We know historically, in fact, part of the conversation we had with Edomites this weekend at camp. There was a Jewish man there. You can ask Howard, right? The Jewish man is standing there because he hears us talking about black people being Israelites and stuff. He first says there's no black people in the region, and then says Igbo and Ethiopians are Israelites. And I'm like, but they used to be in the region. The only reason they're not is because of 70 AD. He says, yes, that makes sense. I've heard this before. And I said, do you know where history tells us most of the Israelites ran to in 70 AD? And we did a Google search. Let me see if it'll still pop up. Hold on. So look, I'm gonna show you real quick because this is kind of funny. So literally, we could change the answer based on what we type in. So if I type in 70 AD, did Israelites flee to Africa or Europe? It says to clarify, the migration of Israelites after 70 AD, consider the following points. Many Israelites fled to various regions. So they have to say this, right? Including Africa and Europe after the destruction of the Second Temple. Significant numbers settled in North Africa, particularly in areas like Egypt and Libya. Some groups migrate to Europe, especially in places like Rome and other parts of the Mediterranean, right? Now, here's what's crazy. They didn't flee to Europe uh, after 70 AD. The ones that were there, that were Israelites, were already there. We've proven this, right? Paul, his people, right? He's from Tarshish. So we already had Israelites in Europe, in Rome, in the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean, for those of you guys that don't realize, is the place that we've been talking about this entire class. The Aegean, the Peloponnese, right? The Ionic Islands, right? Anatolia. That's the Mediterranean. So we were already there. We didn't flee there. But it told you significant number fled to Africa, right? Watch this. The Jewish diaspora expanded significantly during this period, leading to communities in both continents. So they have to, there still isn't any fleeing to Poland or Russia, which is where the Jews come from now, right? Jewish people. So it's like these are things you have to take into account. Why does it say what it says? They're trying to connect dots. They didn't connect the dot from Poland and Russia here, but they're trying to connect the dot to make it seem like they were fleeing to Europe. In the Europe they have isn't like, you know, Bulgaria or Czechoslovakia. It's Greece, somewhere pretty close to Israel, Cyprus, right? So these aren't places they were running to 70 AD. You would have got trapped because you're running to the same direction that, well, the people that are coming against you were coming from. You know, Titus and Vespasian are coming from Macedonia. So you'd be running right towards the enemy. That doesn't make any sense. So they ran towards the mountains like Christ told them to do in Luke, which is why they ran to Africa. But again, they have to connect dots to try to substantiate the people that are there now, right? So it's no difference, no new thing under the sun. So same thing happened in this instance, right? Literally. They have to connect the dots, the Dorian invasion, right? Macedonia and the Dorians to Slavic people. So they tell you they came from the north, even though they came from the east. Because their people are documented as coming from the north. Just like they tell you there were Israelites that ran to Poland and Russia. There isn't any documentation of this after 70 AD of any of us running there. But they have to connect the dot. Right? So that's how it works.
This is Dor Israel. You look at
There's a Dor Israel and there's a Dorians, and the Dor Israel is on the coast near Joppa, where Dan was. It's just
look at it on the map. You can see it's a coastal city along the sea, right? Here's some more pictures of Dor. Dor is mentioned all throughout the scriptures. Ancient Dor, a port city on the coast of ancient Palestine, was a key hub of trade and cultural exchange. Archaeologists have unearthed a variety of artifacts there from
keep in mind too, right? Something I forgot to mention this whole class. Dan is the second biggest tribe in the whole 12 tribes of Israel, numerically, in the book of Numbers, in the book of Judges. When you go into the numbers of them and who had to move where, who was getting what land, Dan had to take land because they had more people than everybody else that was given allotments at the time. And the allotment they were given was way too small to have the second biggest tribe in all the land. Right? So you got to understand, as I brought up to you in that other lesson where we proved to you that Danites started moving right away. And then we've already kind of showed you that this lesson too, which we're going to show a little bit more as we go, because we're almost done, but I'm going to keep showing you guys some stuff. So, but yeah, Dan being such, you know, a numerous tribe, they literally started leaving due to lack of space very early, right? And everywhere they left, they connect themselves to either Phoenicians or Egyptians or, you know, Japhetites, Javan, and they make their own settlements in these places. They don't join and like create culture with them, but they literally come and bring their own to the land. That's why you see them as sea peoples still wearing fringes, still wearing tzitzits, still wearing borders of blue, and, you know, all of their war maritime essential garment wear and armory they carried with them in the same type of stuff they carried with them to new lands like Scandinavia and Germany and Russia, Poland, and Bulgaria. So because everything's the same. It all looks the same. Nothing changed. The Vikings are still wearing horns. Danes, right? That comes from the Sea Peoples, right? So it's like these are all things you have to put into perspective. Nothing changed the whole time. They kept everything the same and stayed a adder in the path by putting their name on every damn thing, right?
Pottery to amphora, revealing its rich history as a crossroads of the Eastern Mediterranean. A crossroads? It was like a Times Square. They call it a crossroads, meaning you had to go to door, and door had to come to you. I wonder what they're hiding. Josh,
Medinet Habu. What did I want to bring out here? It's about Ramses. It mentions door, right? Certain type of descriptions that they had. And this papyrus, by the way, because I've told you guys about the Primitive dynasty and how Dan, Simeon, Judah left Greece and a lot of them went up north, right? After Greece, not 70 AD, but like from Greece, which is connected to the Rhineland, which connects to Germany and Poland and Russia, right? So it's like a much easier migration on foot there than it would be coming from Israel, right? But this papyrus Winnemoon, it comes from Moscow, right? Dates back 1075 BCE while we're in the Primitive dynasty. So I thought that was interesting too when I saw this because I was like, damn, we even got artifacts from when we were actually in these places that show we were somewhere else before this. That's crazy. But you non-historical people wouldn't have known to even like put that together. This is literally an artifact from Danite and Judite Israelites from Russia in a time period that we were running the land. You got to remember Saint Vladimir, the guy that made the Russian icons, right? We did a lesson on Vlad. Let me show you, in case some of y'all forgot. Let me Where is Vlad? Oh, this is the Danite and the Dorians. Hold on. Let's see here. Here we go. Where you at, Vlad buddy? I want to show him to y'all with his sons. No. See everybody but y'all. Hold on, y'all. Give me a second. I want to show this since I said it. If not, here we go. All right, bet. Hi. So, as I showed y'all before, let me stop this. Pull it up here. This Saint Vlad. So, this is Boris and Geb. This picture is taken 1560, but we're actually in this empire, ruling the empire in the 1000s, right? So, the guy that commissions the Russian icons, Saint Vladimir, the Israelite, and his two sons, Boris and Geb, the founders of Ukraine and Czechoslovakia, right? Well, and you still see all them Israelite Ukrainian artifacts. We literally have a lesson on these three guys, right, on the channel for Milk Monday. Yeah, that artifact that we just read is literally from the place Vladimir was ruling from during the time he's ruling. And it talks about Dor, which is his ancestors, because he would be a Danite. So it's like, make it make sense, bro. It's crazy. It's you can't doubt that. That's impossible. Right? So yeah, but let's get back. Wow. Winnemoon.
understanding in history, The papyrus winter moon is a very pivotal artifact, excuse me, a very pivotal inscription that you must know. The papyrus winter moon, also known as Papyrus Moscow 120, dates back to around 1075 BCE. Winter moon, he's an envoy, meets King Beater of the Checker in Dor, who graciously provides him with provisions. So there's a story that the envoy of Wintermoon, he details they found this papyrus amongst the Medinet Habu during the times of Ramses III, is what this was this story is about around that time, right?
So it's a papyrus about the Dinian, basically, right? Dealing in Egypt with around the time of Ramses III, but it's found way up in Moscow, which is documented where they traveled to. These are things you gotta like, yo, how's that possible? That's like the people that say the Gadites, the Native Americans aren't the Gadites, and they're the only people on the planet Earth that have any artifacts from Assyrian captivity proving that they were, in Assyrian captivity. So it's like, how? It's the same type of stuff. This is why history is important. Because if you don't know about these things, you start to build misconceptions in your brain that don't really make sense and don't line up with history. Whereas if you do know about these things, you can make conclusions and come to conclusions that actually line up with what the history is saying, right? Which is what we should be doing in the first place. So, all right. Let me see what the Doric King joint got. The Harris Papyrus, right? All these scriptures in their islands and the Jecker and the Palisade, right? So this is just going into what I was just talking about with that ram as well. So it's like, wow, we got the Bible substantiating it. We got the migration patterns based on where it was found substantiating it. And then we got the people actually talking in the papyri substantiating what we're saying, calling us the names that his story calls us by, like the Dinian, right? Dinian. That's the name for Dan in Egyptian because their characters and their alphabet is different, right? So, yeah, this is things you gotta. It's crazy.
Lot that goeth up to Seir, which Joshua gave unto the tribes of Israel for possession according to their divisions. The king of Dor and the coast of Dor, one. The king of the nations of Gilgal, one.
You see? So I'll let y'all go back and read that on your own time and take a screenshot of it because I want to fast forward past this a little bit. But yeah, man. This whole winter moon thing they did, this whole section right here, y'all need to look into this because uh it's something you need to know in order to really get a grasp of the type of maritime travel and what we were really involved in and how long it was that these people was going back and forth through Israel, right? Because I guarantee you, this is probably a group of Israelites, sea peoples that do like Cornelius do. They go handle their business and they come back and worship the Most High when they got time. There's a lot of Danites doing this, which is why they had like the heathen shrines and stuff during the time of the split between the northern and southern kingdom. The reason why they had shrines in Dan for the heathen was because Dan was always around the heathen. So if they bringing stuff back, this is where you're gonna go to find out, like to see all the heathen artifacts, all that type of stuff, because they was working with them the entire time. They was always going off dealing with that type of stuff the whole time. Nothing ever changed. So this substantiates what I told you guys in my particular lesson. We read Ezekiel 27, right? Again, there were brothers that tried to downplay it like it wasn't possible. And now you see proof that it is and that it was. And that's what happened. And here we got the Sea People's Coalition, including Dinian or Dan, sometimes linked to some scholars as Danuna, right? So even more of a name that substantiates the claim. So dates back 1175 BCE, same time period, within the same time period as the Dark Ages in the beginning of such, when we tell you guys that we're really doing these colonization migrations with other sea peoples, right? Ramses III, New Kingdom, Egypt, year 8 campaign. All right. So you see here, there's inscriptions. This is a hieroglyphic, tells a story about the Dinyan and Dauna in that thing that we just talked about, Ramses giving us in that inscription, right? In the papyri. So variations of Dan, Dinyan, Danuna, Danans, and the Danoi, the Tejanu and the Tanea and the Dinyan and Dinanim, right? So we explained this to you. I showed you guys all of this stuff in my first PowerPoint. These are not names except for the ones that start with a T. That should be, new to you, right? And of course, you got Dorians after this. So Eastern Mediterranean parts of the sea peoples, for the Dinyan, right? These are the ones that were going straight back and forth to Egypt. Then you got Danans when they settled in Greek. So Greek world, especially linked to Homeric Greeks. Then the Tanea, mentioned in the Egyptian records, another sea people group. So just like the Shekelesh and what they call it, the Wekwesh, the Ekoesh and the Shekelesh, right? You have the Tanea, right? These are groups of sea people that we would attach ourselves to. Most likely, probably split with Phoenicians, but we're in these groups. As I showed you guys in the chat GPT, it's documented proof that Danites and Asherites are in these groups. You know what I'm saying? And of course, the Dinanim and Rodinian variations also linked to sea peoples in the Levantine coast, like we just said, Shekelesh, Ekwesh, right? So, bow. It's crazy, man. All this history, we ain't know nothing about it. Listen to this. This is actually good. I'm gonna let him say this. This is from the book Ancient Egyptian Onomastica. I think I pronounced it right. I hate that word. But yeah, Sir Alan Henderson Gardner. I've mentioned his name before too. So pretty good white historian. He did some honest work sometimes. So yeah, check this out.
By the Spirit and figure this out. Then the script pretty man, you need a liar. Didn't the Bible say his tongue shall fall upon himself? I'm pretty sure he didn't know that Israelites were going to wake up.
That's why I said pretty honest work. Sometimes he didn't know we were going to find out, but yeah, he was honest sometimes. And when he was, he can't. There's nothing they can do about it now. It is what it is.
By the Spirit and figure this out. Didn't the scripture say that his tongue is going to fall upon himself? Didn't it say he shall accomplish a diligent search? Well, this guy accomplished a diligent search and he found a lot. This is
shout out to Alan, man, because he helped us with a lot. Yeah. Shout out to you, white boy.
From his book called The Ancient Egyptian Onomastica, which is a list of names.
Onomastica.
When you find a list of names, they normally call it an onomastica. So Sir Alan Gardner was a prominent Egyptologist, best known for his extensive work on ancient Egyptian language and text. Most of the information of those tribes, however, comes from two slightly later Egyptian sources. The first source, the Onomasticon of Amenopi, this is from his book, dates from the end of the 12th or beginning of the 11th century BC. That document contains a list of names: Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gaza, Asher, Shurden, Checker, and Philistia. That is, the three coastal cities of the Philistines are mentioned. In the view of several scholars, it may also include the Israelite tribe of Asher. Hold on. You mean to tell me that this Egyptologist who was experienced in language and text is saying that one of the list of the sea peoples may be of the tribe of Asher? I wonder what was written in this Onomasticon. I wonder why
y'all know Asher's a sea people. Y'all thought Dan was just traveling by himself, not taking nobody with him? I already showed you guys Simeon was with him. Why wouldn't the other people that got boats pull up? Right? Don't make no sense. So yeah, we was there.
Deborah said, and Asher remained on his coast. Right? We know Dan or Dinian, right, is all throughout the sea coast We see them all over, right? What we just went through, what we just presented. But it says, in the view of several scholars, it may also include the Israelite tribe of Asher, which ruled over an enclave adjoining its territory in the Akko plain and 3 tribes of sea peoples. Dang. So
3 tribes of sea peoples. Huh?
it may make up other tribes of the sea peoples.
So like it's tribes we might not even know is named that got Israelites in them. It might not be no sea people tribes that ain't Israelites. It might just be Israelites that are sea people. And then we end up letting other people tag along. And then they gave them the credit as a sea people. Like that's damn near what it seems like now. Because all the artifacts seem to have more proof that we was there than they do any other group of people. Right? Which is ironic. Even after we continue to move on with our lives and change our names and our identity and everything, even the way we dress continues to stay the same as what they call sea people, but they don't give the credit to Israelites. They give it to Indo-Europeans. It doesn't make any sense, right?
It can thus be assumed that the checker in Sheridan had also seized a number of areas on the coast of Israel. So he's like, he's confusing his head like, man, they might have seized it. No, the people who settled there seized it in the times of Joshua.
Thank you. See, he was confused. He's like, yo, was it the sea peoples that was taking over the Israelites, or was it the Israelites taking over the sea peoples? No, you damn cracker. The Israelites are the sea peoples. You see them having numbers of Israelite coasts because the people who controlled the Israelite coast were Israelites. There's nobody that controlled the coast but us. We just happen to also be the colonizers that was colonizing the islands next to the coast too. That wasn't that far off from the coast, like Cyprus, and then Javon, and then everything close to Javon, right? Like we went and colonized those places. So we did, just like we did Israel, Canaan, right? We were the first colonists. They stole the game from us. Real talk. We were just a whole lot slicker about it. And when they did it, they had to change all the history and make it seem like we had nothing to do with it. So, yeah. What we got here? All right. So, this is his other book. This is Eric Klein, right? The fact that the traditions, especially literary traditions, which specifically state that the sea peoples settled Tel Dor, right, in the north of what is now modern Israel. For example, the Egyptian story called the Report of Winnamun, which is what we read, right? It says, which dates back to the half of the 11th century BC, refers to Dor as a town of the Jeker and the sickles, right? Shekelesh. So another Egyptian text, the Anmas, that word I can't pronounce, of the Ananopi, the Amenopi, which dates to circa 11 BC, 1100 BC, list the Shardana and the Jeker and the Palisade. Also mentions the sites of Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Gaza, Israelite cities, right? 3 of the 5 sites considered to be part of Palestine, Penetropolis. Sites along the Carmel coast, Akko Valley, which is where we just read Asher was joining into the gang, right? Which ain't too far from their land, as well as perhaps Tel Dan, which we know is, well, artifacts that prove Danite was running all over the world, which is why they call it Tel Dan, because it's artifacts that prove Dan was in Greece and all these other places because of the artifacts they found there, right? And the names of gods that they found there, which is also how they know that shrine that talks about in Dan, in the book of Judges and Kings and Chronicles, was a real shrine because it's documented in Tel Dan. Have also suggested and have been settled by the sea peoples such as Shardana and the Danuna, who is Dan. How about that? Shardana, Danuna. They both Dana. Okay? They're Dan. It's my people. That's us. Yeah. We good on boats. My grandfather was a sailor. hmm So I cuss so much. For those of y'all that don't know, right? It's a real thing. He cuss like a sailor. It's not just it, it's real. Okay. So yeah, I come from people that used to be on boats. We love fishing. We could swim. I guarantee you, ain't nobody in the nation of Israel that isn't from Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic that could swim better than me. And I probably swim better than them niggas too. I'm just saying. So yeah, I could swim. We like the water. And it's like after you do the research, you always wondered why. Cause y'all know the story. I thought I was a Gadite at first, but I'm like, damn, it don't have. There's nothing about Gad that loves water like that. Like, and then bam, I'm a freaking Danite. There it is. It makes sense. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, the spirit don't lie sometimes, man. Y'all gotta check it. So let's see what else I want to show y'all. Tanea, did I want to go over this? Or am I gonna let y'all do this on your own time? I'll read it. So, black ships and sea raiders, the late Bronze Age and early Iron Age context of Odysseus, right? Which is another, you know, it's the Odyssey, okay? It's the epics, right? So, Tanea and the Danans, chapter 4. Dananim or Danunim may also be related to Tanea, a term thought to refer to some part of the Greek world, perhaps the mainland. This toponym is found in 18th dynasty records, including those at the Tutmosis III. Y'all should know about that. Amenhotep III, an account of tribute received by Tutmosis following his 17th and final Asiatic campaign, right? In his 42nd regnal year contains the following. Benevolence of the chief of Tanea, silver of Jug, Keftiu, workmen along with the vessels of iron with silver handles, making 56 blah 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 blah. All right, so each base features a list of toponyms and its front and sides written onto the lower bodies of bound kneeling individuals in the form referred to as captive ovals, right? Or ovals. So here is what they're talking about, right? Clearly the Danua, a later Bronze Age people, are being historically related to populations that Egypt earlier called Tanea, right? So remember, Egypt had their own names for us. We had cities in Egypt that we lived in. The Dinian and the Danea, the Danua, right, are supposedly people that lived in Tanea, which is why the Egyptians just referred to the place that they were at as Tanea, which referred to Mycenaean Greece or part of the Aegean world. You see? So instead of them calling it Greece, they called it Tanea because they knew the people that were from Tanea were the ones that lived in Greece. Understand? So that's just a little bit there to show you that. And then this was real good. Philistine and Israelite, right? Sharon and Gilboa. Doric culture. Did I want to go over this? No, because I feel like it's going to be a lot I'm going to have to go into for that. All right, Danaeus. This will be easy to do. So, Israelite settlement at Dor. Of course, we already know about that. You see, they got the ship on the coin because that's what Dan was about, right? Yeah, the boats. You got Danaeus. Whenever this joint loads. Come on, Danaeus. Goodness gracious. All right, what's happening?
Those are for.
Okay, here we go. All right, so first century BC historian Diodorus Siculus, or Seleucus, quotes historian Hecataeus of Abdera, right? So since we are about to give an account on the war against the Jews, we consider it appropriate before we proceed further in the first place to relate the origin of this nation and their customs, right? Check this out. In ancient times, a great plague occurred in Egypt, and many ascribed the cause it to the gods. You should know about this if you watch The Prince of Egypt or if you've ever read the book of Exodus, right? That's what they're talking about. So these events where we read this Pharaoh going through a bunch of crap and Egypt going through a bunch of stuff because they have the the Israelites in captivity, right? Well, this is a story that's historically documented. And now we're about to see people talking about it and referring to these people as who they are, right? And remember what I told you about Dan being a people that found it pretty early that they could either attach themselves to the Exodus with Moses or do their own Exodus and go back with Moses later on. And there were two groups that did both. There was a group of them that went with Moses and a group that did their own thing and then went back, which is why there was so many of they ass when it came to the, counting of them. They were the second largest group with nowhere to go, very small allotment of land. I would think, even though it's not included in the Bible biblical account, I honestly think because of the history we have, that many of them left and came back. So when Joshua and them were deciding what land to give to Dan after they go and, start pillaging and stuff like that and scouting out land allotments, the first group of Danites that was there was probably good enough for the Joppa Coast, right? But then when the rest of them showed up, it was like, what the hell? We ain't got no room. So that's when brothers go up to Laish and then brothers end up going to Greece. So yeah, that's how that happened. And there's history to back that up, even though it's not directly documented like that in the biblical account. You know what I'm saying? We do see that there's more Israel or more Danites than anybody else for some reason at the time of them being allotted land, and they get the smallest allotted land. So that to me makes the only logical explanation. But anyway, that's just my own thing in my own brain. So yeah. But Danaeus, right? So let's start here. For since the multitudes of the strangers of different nationalities who lived there made use of their foreign rites and religious ceremonies and sacrifices, the ancient manner of worshiping the gods practiced by ancestors of the Egyptians had been quite lost and forgotten. Therefore, the native inhabitants concluded that unless all the foreigners were driven out, they would never be free from their miseries. So, watch this. All the foreigners were forthwith expelled, and the most valiant and noble among them, under some notable leaders, were brought to Greece and other places, as some relate. The most famous of their leaders were Danaeus and Cadmus, right? Danaeus and Cadmus. But the majority of the people descended into the country not far from Egypt. So you see, there's historical accounts proving there were brothers that went other places. Not everybody followed Moses, right? But it seemed to be like a tribal thing. It was a specific tribe or two that decided to go do their own thing in Greece, right? Right now, I'm going to say Dan and Asher. If you ask me, Danaeus, Danite, Cadmus, Asherite. But that's just, again, me. So, hey, but the majority of the people descended into the country not far from Egypt, which is now called Judea, and at the time was altogether uninhabited, right? So, and then we got Psalm 80 and 8. Thou hast brought a vine out of Egypt. Thou hast cast out the heathen and planted it. 80 and 9. Thou preparest room before it and didst cause it to take deep root and fill the land. If you know anything about us in Egypt, we got real big, we got real successful, and that's when they wanted to drive us out. That's why, right? So, yeah. Hope this is all making sense to y'all, bro. But it's like crazy. Why did Dan remain in ships? Oh no. All right, watch this. So, and after this, we'll probably shut it down because we're getting to 2 hours. So, I'll let y'all watch the rest of this on your own time. But historical migrations from Egypt, book 128, chapter 1, verse 28. The Egyptians say that also after these events, a great number of colonies were spread from Egypt over all the inhabited world. To Babylon, for instance, colonists were led by Belus, right? who was held to be the son of Poseidon and Libya. So this is an Israelite. Poseidon is a Danite. That was really good at the sea. And they made him a god. Libya. And after establishing himself on the Euphrates River, he appointed priests. Libya most likely would be the wife of Poseidon. Just like how I showed you guys, Sparta was the wife of Lacedaemon, which is why the Spartans are called Spartans. Right? When we went to Scotland, they called them Scots because of Queen Scotia, the wife of King Eber, right? So these are things you got to take into account, right? When it comes to brothers and how they was doing with their wives and naming whole people after them and stuff. Like it's just something Dan was doing. So Poseidon and Libya have a kid, Belus, right? And after establishing himself on the Euphrates, he appoints priests called Chaldeans and Babylonians. This is the story, right? They're mythos. So, who were exempt from taxation and free from every kind of service to the state, as are the priests of Egypt. And they also make observations of the stars, which is what we know the Chaldeans were known for historically. So it's like, do they get the historical story of the Chaldeans from the Chaldeans, or does it come from our stuff? It's kind of things that make you go, right? So check this out. Red letter. They say also that those who set forth with Danaeus, likewise from Egypt, settled what is practically the oldest city in Greece, Argos, and that the nation of the Colchi in Pontus, and that the Jews, which lies between Arabia and Syria, were founded by colonies by certain immigrants from these countries. So they start by telling you how world starts, right? Going to Babylon and Chaldea and stuff like that, right? Belus, Poseidon, Libya, trying to give you like stories on gods and stuff, making it like an epic. And then they throw out the Israelites, Danaeus, right? Colchi, Pontus. So yeah, that's all stuff you got to think about. Give me just a second. Hey, man. Come here. What's up? What? All right. But yeah, so that's what's going on with that. All right. So let me see if there's one more thing I want to show y'all before we leave. Oh, yeah, this right here. I'm going to let him explain this part. So the Judges 17 explanation in a book. So check this out.
And then, why did he remain in ships? This is from page 20. It says the Dani in the coast of Jaffa. We know that's Joppa. That's where Dan resided, in Joppa and that coast. The close ties between the coast of Palestine and the Dani, or their heroes, according to Greek tradition, as well as the fact that the Dani constitute the third element among the groups of the peoples of the sea who fought against Ramses III, the other two being the Philistines and the Checker, would appear to provide a basis for the assumption that part of the Dani also settled along the shores of Palestine, since the Philistines settled from Jaffa southwards, while the Checker made their home. I wonder who those are, but they don't have no idea. Made their home in the vicinity of Dor, the only area.
The Jecker got to be Israelites, right? They try to say they're Phoenician homelanders or something, sea people, but no, these are just Israelites that went by a different name from the tribe of Dan, if you ask me. So, yeah. Because again, large number of people, they always moving back and forth, always traveling, always doing their own thing because there's no land for them. So, yeah, there it is.
Which comes into consideration for the Dani is that which stretch between Dor and Jaffa.
That's all Dan land, Dor and Jaffa. That's all. So what would the Jecker be?
Joppa. That was the land of Dan. This is from page 22, the Dani. From the information available in both historical and historical mythological sources, it is possible to ascertain the following facts. The tribe of the Denai originates in the East, and the introduction of the alphabet to Greece is attributed to it.
So they bring the alphabet to Greece, right? Along with the gods and the pantheon and all the other stuff that I told you guys about. Everything was from us. Because I went through that lesson and I showed you guys Peloponnesians or Japhetites had their own gods, right? They had Oceanus. That's why we called the ocean. We brought Poseidon, who controlled the ocean. Why? Because we controlled them. We took them over. So that was the mythos. Poseidon beats Oceanus, so Poseidon controls the sea. Right? That's what it was. So as we beat them, the mythos of the gods and the stories thereof began to reflect those conquests and the colonization, right?
We're going to read that one more time for the scoffers. The tribe of the Denai originates in the East, and the introduction of the alphabet to Greece is attributed to it. Its members were outstanding seamen who had some special connection with sun worship. Remember, they was going off in the worship of the sun. If you look at the slide in the beginning, between the horns was the depiction of the sun. Remember in Ezekiel chapter 8, he was saying how the Israelites was looking east with a sunrise because they were worshiping the sun, right? They were worshiping Horus, Tammuz. So you get horizon, Horus rising. They were worshiping the sun as it rises from the east. They were sun worshipers, which the Most High was provoked to anger from. It says, its heroes in a special capacity for asking riddles. Sections of this tribe wander as warrior bands, invaded various places and established cities, which they named for the fathers of the tribe.
Can't make that up. They're at her in the path. Scandinavia, Lacedaemon, Macedonia becomes Macedonia, Lacedaemon, right? Don River, Scandinavia, Dor, Teldan, Dan. They name places after their forefathers, right?
Right? So where they went, they would name the place Denmark.
Denmark. That's where my last name comes from, right? Danes. So yeah, this is that. This is us. We is me. So there's a whole lot more history in this video, bro. This junk is crazy. Dardanians. You know what I'm saying? Checker, Shekalis, Sicklese, the Dekel. These are like sea people, right? Dardanoi, Dardani. These are Danites, homie. Okay? Dardani associated with Troy, ancestor to Dardanus. Right? Mythic ancestor to the Trojans. The Terutians, right? So, or Tusher, right? Early Trojan myth. Trode, Anatolia, regions near Troy. The Dekel, right? Sounds like shekel. Hired ones and stuff, right? Variant spelling of Jecker. Same as Jecker linked to Canaan. So, Yurt. It's a lot of stuff, bro. Y'all wasn't ready for this one. I tell you. But when you are ready, I suggest you go watch the rest of this video. Yeah. It's a good video to watch, right? A lot of history in it, a lot of stuff that'll tie things together for you guys. And it'll stop you from doing what that one camp is doing right now, right? Trying to teach heathen and heathen had nothing to do with this. It literally was Israelites the whole time. And there's actual documented proof and facts to prove this stuff. It never was any heathen that ever had anything to do with the Israelites in the Greek civilization. So these brothers will tell you that heathen never had anything to do with us in the Old Testament, but then the New Testament is supposed to give them the place where they had something to do with us. The places where they had something to do with us, according to them, would be the Greek world, the Aegean, right? The Peloponnese. And then you find out all the people that were in this land were Japhetites and Israelites. Like, that's literally it. Until you get Alexander and Philip people coming to the land. And they don't get control until around 400 BC. Alexander, 300 BC. And then by the time of the Maccabees, we're fighting with them again, taking back control, going back and forth. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, a lot of history brothers in this community need to learn still, so that they stop making crazy mistakes. But I guess till the Most High puts it out there for y'all, we'll just continue teaching it. So, hope y'all enjoyed the lesson tonight. Like I said, shout out to Ram Gadol Gabarium, shout out to the House of Bread, shout out to Masada. We are the only camps really doing this type of research for you guys. So watch the videos that we're putting out, because we're doing them for y'all. You know what I'm saying? Y'all like the videos, share them, all that type of stuff, and give feedback. If there's anything y'all want to know or y'all got information to add to it, feel free to add it. You know what I'm saying? Because we need it. So yeah, but we're trying to tie this thing together, prove the reason why there's no difference between Jew nor Greek is literally because the Jews and the Greeks are the same people. So with that, I'm brother Eliel, Shar Eliel Akiezer, right? The aristocrat. And hope you guys enjoy your night, enjoy your week. Stay tuned for the rest of the lessons we got. And yeah, till next time. Long live Dan. Shalom.